Welcome to 25-8 The Culture. On who's hot and who's not. Everything hip hop. Turn it on, turn it up, get it loud. Here we go. You're now vibing with 25.
Welcome to 25-8 The Culture. I'm your host, DJ Pablo Maccabee, with the host, D Wise, one half of the Big Fellas. And
What's up, everybody? From the streets to the corporate suites, we in here for another great episode once again.
And our special guest today, from John Law Firm, John Clark.
Hey, what's happening?
How's it going?
All is well, man. All is well. How are you guys?
Blessed, man.
I
just want to say something real quick before we jump in. This guy, we brought him in. There's a lot going on in the country, especially with Black Lives Matter movement and certain things going on the law-wise. And we have a lot of questions going on, especially revolving around the Breonna Taylor situation. Again, this guy has his law firm out of Sumter, South Carolina. He's been doing law for 30 years. This is what we call the expert of experts. You feel what I'm saying? So just, John, I want to say I appreciate you coming on the show and giving up your time. I know you're a busy man, and I know you have a huge mind, huge brain, and I'm happy that you let us pick it for a little bit during the show. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, man. I'm thrilled that you asked me to come on, man. You know, glad to be here. Really am.
So basically,
man, what you gonna say, people?
On the show, we talk about hip hop and current news and stuff like that. There's a lot going on from Breonna Taylor issue.
Right.
The elections right now, with the presidential debates with Trump and Biden. Also, too, there's just so much going on. We wanted to, talk about the Breonna Taylor case and how it's basically, the impact that it has on America right now, on the Black culture, on America as well, and and how this is affecting Black lives and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, we wanted to touch a little bit too, also on the possible. The possible thing about reparations that I seen recently, that the state of California brought up a proposal on reparations as well. But we could touch that Breonna Taylor issue first.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. This Breonna Taylor case. It's a tragic case, of course. You got a 26-year-old young lady. Apparently, she's completely innocent. She's shot 5 times, not by quote unquote criminals. She's shot 5 times by the police, man. She's killed, and even they had agreed that she was totally innocent, and so it's a tragic case. But in looking at the case, I think it's the perfect case to change the culture, to change history, to reform criminal justice.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things I think we need to do in America, man. We got to have criminal justice reform. I mean,
I agree.
We got to change a lot of things about it. And so while this case is tragic, we wish it never happened, just like the George Floyd case, we wish it never happened. But the change that has come about, in that case, there's already been change. In this case, there's going to be change. And it seems to me that sometimes tragedy has to happen for things to change, like Dr. King, Dr. King has a statue in Washington, D.C. He has a national holiday. He is a icon. I don't think he would have been as popular had he not been killed. You see what I'm saying? The killing is what made him the legend that he is, But yeah, I think this case it's the perfect case to bring about change in so many ways. It's because it has so many issues, it's so, like George Floyd, the issue really was excessive force. They just, it was excessive force. There might be a question of whether he was lawfully arrested. Nobody really focused on what he did, because what happened to him was so egregious, and it just, so it didn't really matter what he did. The the crime didn't fit the punishment.
Absolutely.
But that was the main issue, you know, the excessive force. This case has so many other issues. You know, you got search warrant issues, okay? You got castle doctrine issues.
Yes.
You got you got grand jury issues, okay, which I want to talk about. You got the angle of the attorney general, and why he's doing some of the things and why he's even the attorney general. You know, is he even qualified? You know, so there's so many different issues. I think it's the perfect case to bring about change.
Yeah.
So for the people that don't know, could you please break down what you were talking about as far as the breakdown what a no-knock warrant is, so people can be caught up to speed, and also the castle, what's the
castle
proper terminology?
Castle doctrine.
Yeah, the castle doctrine.
Yeah,
could you please talk about those? Because from my understanding, and I'm gonna let you get more into it, but it's like it's crazy, like a no-knock warrant and the castle doctrine don't mix.
Are in direct conflict.
It's like one trying to, you know, what they say, immovable object hitting on unstoppable force.
Right.
Like there's no right or it's
a direct.
That's why I please break that down, because like it just confuses me even deeper. How is one with the other?
Right, and that's why this case is so interesting, because you know it brings forth issues that are just that are peculiar, you know, as old folks used to say. But you know, this case, just kind of like a history on it, because you have to know the facts of what happened to really understand, you know, the legal ramifications. But apparently, you know, she was a 26-year-old EMT worker.
Yeah.
Apparently, according to the Louisville Police Department, she had some association with drug dealers. Okay. What they say is that her ex-boyfriend was a drug dealer. They say that a car registered to her, was seen at a spot that they were surveilling. Okay. And they say that her ex-boyfriend picked up drugs from her apartment. Now, it's not clear whether it was delivered by FedEx or whatever, but y'all know how that goes. You know, people sending drugs through the mail now. You know what I'm saying? So those are the facts or the factors that led to this search warrant. Now, you know, under the Fourth Amendment, you know, you have the right to be free of unreasonable search and seizure. You know, when this country was founded, the people that came from England, they were leery of the government. They wanted rights that, you know, protected them. So anyway, in order to come into your house, you got to have a warrant. There has to be a reasonable suspicion that crime is going on there. Okay. So what they did is they took those factors that I mentioned, the ex-boyfriend, the car, the drug pickup, and they went to a judge. And when you get a search warrant, the officer has to sign an affidavit. Okay. And he has to swear to those facts. Now, he doesn't have to prove that a crime is going on. He has to prove that there's reasonable suspicion. Yeah. There's a reason to believe that crime is going on. Now, I want to make a footnote here, because this officer that got the search warrant, I read something that said he was under internal affairs investigation.
Interesting.
So his credibility is a big question now, because you know he may have been a dirty cop from the beginning. Okay. But anyway, and see that goes in line with criminal justice reform, because this guy is under investigation, but he's still being allowed to operate as a police officer and affect your rights, and you know, carried out this thing that ended up with this girl being dead. So anyway, they use that to get a search warrant. Now, a no-knock warrant is to prevent the destruction of tangible, sensitive, delicate evidence. Okay. So if they're trying to retrieve a bag of powder cocaine, right?
Yeah.
If you can dump it in the toilet while they're announcing that they're here, then you know they're never going to catch you with the drugs. Yeah. So that's why no-knock warrants are allowed, to because they fear the destruction of evidence.
Yeah.
So now, so now the Castle Doctrine is simply a doctrine that says a man has a right to defend his home. I mean, even if he has to kill you, he has the right to stand his ground in his home. Okay,
that's why people have firearms for home defense.
Exactly. Yeah. You saw the people in the lawyers in Minnesota that came out and stood on their front lawn with the automatic rifles.
Yeah, they were protecting their possessions or any threats.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And they weren't charged with a crime, but anyway, so that's the Castle Doctrine. Now, so if you posture them together, then you have a situation where the police can come in with a search warrant. You don't know who the hell is coming in. You have a lawful weapon. You fire at the door. Now, and the thing is, under the law, when in any self-defense case, self-defense doctrine, because that's where Castle Doctrine falls under. I mean, it's a self-defense.
Yeah.
In self-defense, you have the right to act on appearances. You don't have to wait until the guy pulls out a gun and points it out and shoots you. Really? If you did, what would be the purpose? Yeah. So in self-defense, you have the right to act on appearances. If somebody's pulling a gun, we've seen all these cases where people, they say, well, I thought he was reaching, but he was reaching for a cell phone. Yeah. And then they say, well, he was reasonable. He thought the guy was reaching. So anyway, so that person inside the home, they have the right to act on appearances. Somebody's kicking in the door. Okay. So now, the Louisville police, they said that they announced themselves. They said that they knocked on the door. They said they knocked on the door like 5 or 6 times. Okay. Now, her boyfriend, who was there with her, he said that, who the guy who actually shot back, he said that he didn't hit him. They said they knocked 5 or 6 times and they announced themselves. Okay. The difference between a no-knock warrant and a regular search warrant is, in a no-knock warrant, they're kicking in the door as they're announcing themselves. Yeah. You see, it's all happening simultaneously. Whereas a regular search warrant, they announce themselves, they tell you they're coming in, there's not a sense of urgency. But her boyfriend.
So, on your opinion, before you go to the next thing, if this happens, is one more powerful than the other? Do they wash each other out? In your opinion? Because I don't know, there might not be a law statute for it, but what holds weight? Like, what's more important in that circumstance?
Well, they are allowed to be given equal weight and consideration. In this case, it came down to who you believe, okay? Because see, in a perfect world, they reconcile with each other in a perfect world. But this is not a perfect world. And what I mean by that is, you got an officer kicking the door in and saying, police, I'm in the house in my PJs, having a beer, just relaxed. Yeah. You think I'm gonna be able to hear him say police when the door is being kicked in?
Also,
and so
especially if you don't live a life of crime, you're not expecting, something like
absolutely.
that. It's different if you're living a life of crime. Like, hey, somebody may, come up in here because they may think there's money or drugs here.
Right.
But you're living an honest life, being an EMT worker and whatever was doing.
Exactly.
Not expecting anything like that.
And what backs up that statement as far as saying living an honest life? I know they searched it and they didn't find anything.
Right. They didn't.
So that backs up me living an honest life. You know what I mean?
And then I think there's also an issue of whether there have been break-ins in the neighborhood. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Because that would give the person a preconceived idea that, hey,
It's happening to me.
Robbery down the street the other day. These people, and you know how it is. I don't know what neighborhood it was. It was an apartment. But you know, a lot of places in America, man, these guys are out of control. I mean, they're kicking in doors and robbing. But anyway, so to answer your question, D-Wise, they're supposed to reconcile. Even though he's coming in with a no-knock warrant, he's supposed to be announcing himself, the police. And that's what they said they did. Now, the boyfriend, Kenneth Walker III, he actually shot back. And he shot one of the officers, okay? Now, like I said, in a perfect world, things work, okay? But we don't live in a perfect world. And you know, when an excitable event like this happens, all hell breaks loose. So because see, Kenneth Walker III, he's in the apartment chilling with his girlfriend. The officer who got shot, so Kenneth Walker's not expecting his door to be kicked in, and the officer didn't expect to get shot. You see what I'm saying? So when the officer got shot, I'd never been shot, and I'm pretty sure neither of you guys have been shot. But if you could imagine how you would react if you heard a loud bang and then all of a sudden, and he said that he felt burning pain. It wasn't one of these wounds that, you know, you didn't know you got shot. This officer said that when he got shot, all hell broke loose. He said what happened, the bang kind of disoriented him, you know, that loud noise. He said the flat, and then he just started shooting wildly, okay? And so that's the just chaotic nature of this thing.
Yeah.
So that's how they got the warrant. They were attempting to execute the warrant, and then once the officer got shot, he just everybody else just started shooting. Okay, and even police officers there are some cops who go their whole career and never discharge their weapon. I don't know if your dad ever discharged his weapon, D-Wise. I don't know.
Yeah, he has, but it's like you said, it's not rare. I mean, it's rare.
It's
like there's
very
people, like
rare.
you said, that go from the whole career not doing it,
right?
And doing so, that one. But
yeah, so my point is they panic too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, and the other thing, guys, that is important, and you know, on CNN and NBC, they only have so much time, but the details, you know, the details tell the story. These police officers were in plain clothes.
Yeah.
Okay. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if that really mattered because I think it happened so quickly. But even if the door was, because they were using a battering ram, they were using a battering ram, but they were in plain clothes. So, you know, that's another factor.
And another thing I got to add on too, from my understanding, this happened at night.
Yeah, it happened at night. These people were
so this makes things even worse.
You know? Yeah. Well, you know, when they serve search warrants, they want to surprise you. Okay. Yep. A lot of times they'll come at 5:30 in the morning.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
It happened to me once.
What's that?
It happened to me once.
Oh yeah, okay. So you know what I'm talking about? 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it was probably about 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and you getting your sleep on, and you were totally unprepared, right?
And you know what's so funny? It was for a mistaken identity. It wasn't even me.
Oh wow. What state did that happen in?
Florida.
I was probably like 16 years old.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, 16 years old. Another, you know, mocha skin black kid with an afro.
Right.
You know?
Wow.
Yeah, they put the phone to be like, oh no, wrong person. I'm like, bro, you just saw my guardian.
Yeah. Well, they could have brought you a biscuit or something, man, a waffle or something. They came that early in the morning, but you know, that's another example of what a young black man has to endure, you know, and that happened to you, and you're just supposed to move on, you know, without any effect on you at all. But so that's ridiculous. But Anyway, so the Castle Doctrine and the no-knock warrant is supposed to reconcile itself in a perfect world, because they're supposed to be notifying themselves. And in Kentucky, one of the exceptions to the Castle Doctrine is that if a police officer announces themselves, okay? So that's an exception. But all of this is like bang, bang. I mean, you know, it's like bang, bang, you know. And see, another way of looking at it is police officers never have to be perfect, okay? They can't be perfect. The law just requires them to be reasonable. You know, that's why when they kill people and it's a mistake, they get away with it if it's deemed reasonable. So shouldn't it be that the person inside the home, all they have to do is be reasonable, okay, under the circumstances?
That's a solid point, because if we were to play it in the reversal, because, and I can't speak of all 50 states, but I can speak of, because, you know, I'm licensed to carry and I have, you know, a few weapons myself, but I know if, even when it came to someone breaking into my house, I'm only allowed so many shots before I get in trouble.
Right.
Like I can't shoot above, like I believe I can't, which even when blood's going, you know, people say they can't count, but if I shoot more than 3 shots, that I can get in a lot of trouble. And then I have to say that as I hit him when he was down, he was reaching still, he was danger. He was going for a weapon. He tried to come back up to hurt me. I can't just empty my clip or I get in so much trouble.
Then it becomes unreasonable.
Yes.
But what I want to say, bro, as big as you are, D-Wise, I don't think you need them guns, man. You know, you go to the door, you go to the door and talk loudly, and they're gonna haul ass, man. You know.
Hey, listen, man, come down to Dade County on the bad side of the neighborhood.
Yeah, you need one. Yeah, well, you're right. Yeah, from what I heard. You know, I watched the first 48 a lot, so I've seen them down there. But so, you know, that's now this young lady was shot 5 times by police. Okay. And they said the fatal shot, she was shot in the chest, you know. Just a horrible, horrible, horrible case. So then, you know, once this happens, now what? Okay. Yeah. Well, the Louisville Police Department charged Kenneth Walker III with attempted murder and an assault. Yeah. Okay, they broke into his house and he thought he was defending himself. They shot and killed his girlfriend. He shot one of them and it wasn't a fatal shot and he ended up with charges. Yeah. Okay.
Which were dropped.
Now, they were dropped. Right. They were dropped. But that just shows you how the mentality of law enforcement is. Now, you got to understand, he was charged before the national spotlight turned to Louisville. You see what I'm saying? So they were going to do this just like that good old, just like they business as usual.
Sweep it under the rug next day.
That's right. They mess up and they charge you. They charge a black man. So he was charged. Case was dropped. I understand he's filed a lawsuit against the city for malicious prosecution, and I believe for the he was assaulted when the weapons were fired into his house, even though he wasn't hit. But so he's filed a lawsuit on that. And so after it was over, when the dust settled, Mr. Walker said they didn't say police. Okay. Police,
and they also to add on that, they also have witnesses, the neighbors saying they didn't hear that conversation that bit either. So that goes to back up his.
The neighbors were calling for the police, not knowing that the police was the one causing all the
Exactly.
So it just goes back to what you say, like, who do you believe? It's just weird that like it backs up his story.
Right.
So you know,
yeah. So you know now, so once the dust settled, Mr. Walker is charged. Case is dropped. Then what? Well, most law enforcement agencies, anytime a weapon is fired, they do an internal investigation, or they have a separate entity do an independent investigation. And so once this happened, you know, people took to the streets. I mean, it was right after the George Floyd killing, man.
Yep.
I mean, you know, people took to the streets. And so there was an outcry for prosecution of the officers, you know, because they didn't act professionally. Like I said, they panicked, they shot up another apartment. So here comes the issue of whether anybody's prosecuted. Now, we know, based on the grand jury's findings, that nobody's been charged with killing Breonna Taylor or even shooting in her apartment.
Yeah.
The only indictment
is the one that got into the neighbor's house.
Right.
Yeah.
Against Brett Hankison, or whatever his name is. And he's the only officer that's charged, and he's charged with not attempted murder or anything like that. He's charged with wanton endangerment. Yep. That basically means he was reckless.
Yep.
You know, that's all that means. And it's for the people in the other apartment. Now, is he going to do life in prison? No. That's a 1 to 5 year felony.
Most likely he's going to get off, be terminated, and get on with another department later on.
And that's a big problem too. That's another element of this criminal justice reform. You sure you guys don't practice law, man? Y'all know a lot about this stuff.
Man, you know, it's crazy. I mean, I didn't go where you went, but like I said, I got a criminal justice degree, so I didn't have to go as far as you had to. And then just life experience, like I said, I mean, I have no problem. Like I tell people, like my father was a New York
you
State
grew up
trooper.
in New York, so I can understand, you know.
Yeah, but you just know the like New York State, you know, my dad's a New York State trooper, and you just practice and you see things and then just experience. Like you got to see what's going on in the world. If you want change, you got to know what's going on.
Right.
And that's why, you know, it's just picking up a book and analyzing, and then you can't like, I believe, and like I even listen to, because they're like, oh, you know, Fox is super conservative, CNN super liberal. My dad taught me, it's a good lesson. You got to listen to both so you know what the other side's talking about.
Right. That's right. That's right.
And you know, you start forming opinions like that. So what I wanted to ask you is like, you know, as far as this case and everything that's going down, when it comes to your opinion on the no-knock warrant, I can understand why it's there, but in your opinion, should it, after a circumstance like this, and it goes kind of against the Castle doctrine, should the no-knock warrant still exist? Should it still be in place? Should it be modified? How can they better that, in your opinion?
I think they can I think they have to modify it, because, you know, what if I'm watching the football game and, you know, somebody scoring a touchdown as you're kicking in the door? I just don't think I don't think it from a practical standpoint that it works. And I think that's another one of the changes that I think this case may bring about, you know. And like I said in the beginning, you know, sometimes tragedy results in change. Like George Floyd, they're not going to do the chokeholds anymore. I forget the kid's name in New York that was choked to death. Eric, what was his name? Eric Garner? Yeah.
Yes.
I believe I heard that the chokeholds aren't authorized anymore. So, so that's what I think. I think it has to be modified. But what I want to talk about now is the grand jury process. Okay. And because everybody's mad about the fact that only one officer is charged. Okay. Now, so what does a grand jury mean? Before I started practicing law, I had no idea what it meant. Okay. But a grand jury.
They all got to agree.
Huh?
They all got to agree.
Right. But it's a rubber stamp process. Here's the process in South Carolina, and I'm pretty sure it's similar everywhere. All right. What happens is, you know, if you go to a jury trial, you have 12 jurors. Okay. A grand jury is made up of 18 people. Okay. And what they do is, and this is in South Carolina, the number could vary in other states, but what they do is, just like they summons you for jury duty, they summons you for grand jury. Okay. Now, if you're on the grand jury, you sit on that jury for like 18 months. It's not just a one-time thing.
Yeah, everybody wants to agree so they can just go home. So, you know, whatever anybody agree on.
Well, but what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, before a case goes to court, it has to be indicted. Okay, you can be arrested on a warrant, but before the indictment is the ticket in court. Okay, and it's supposed to be another layer of protection. Okay, to the public. So the police officer, he establishes probable cause. He gets a warrant to arrest you, or he has enough evidence that he can see to arrest you. He arrests you. He puts you in jail. But before it goes to court, it has to go through the grand jury. Felonies do. Okay, so what happens is these 18 people, they consider all the criminal charges for a year and a half. So what happens is they meet on the first Monday of the month. The DA presents to them his cases. They tell him whether it's a true bill or a no bill. A true bill means the indictment is signed by them. Okay. A no bill means they kick it back. But here's the problem with the grand jury system. The defendant doesn't get the right to appear. Okay. So what happens is the prosecutor goes in, he presents his witnesses, and they decide based on what he says.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a secretive process. The grand jury members can't talk about what happened, what was said before them. And so what happens is the prosecutor goes in, he presents his witnesses, there's no defense. You got 18 citizens who think it's their duty to indict people.
Yeah.
And what happens is, here's where it's really tainted at, okay?
It's like a violation of due process because you're not there to defend yourself.
Exactly, and here's the other point.
And they have more leverage if always the prosecutors always has the upper hand.
Exactly, and what also happens is the prosecutor smoozes them.
Yeah.
So imagine you showed up for jury duty, grand jury duty, the prosecutor is there, the police are there, you scared of them, you know what I'm saying? I don't like police. And so there's a natural inclination to think they're the good guys, you know? And so what I'm saying is they're the ones who bring the coffee, the donuts, you know, and the people are sitting around. And so even some of the most radical people or anti-government people, when they get in that group,
yeah,
they go along with it. So that's the grand jury process. I mean, the prosecutor, in this case, the witnesses who they heard, they were all police officers.
Wow.
They didn't hear evidence from the neighbors. It was police officers. So the grand jury process is a sham, man. I mean, you might have in this county that I practice law in, say you have 100 cases presented to them, they may kick back one. Okay, now,
wow,
when the cases get to court, 50 of them might get dismissed or reduced. But anyway, so that's the grand jury process. Now, here's the reason why nobody was indicted for her murder. The answer is simple. The prosecutor didn't ask them to indict anybody for her murder. Because what happens is he presents the police officers and then he presents their testimony and then he says, grand jury, decide whether this person should be charged with this, that, or this or that, and then they vote on it. And so now, like I said, it was the grand jury testimony. What's said before it is secret. And I guess they did that to protect the witnesses. But anyway, it's secret. So nobody knew whether he asked them to indict these people for killing her or not. And they said no. Nobody knew until the public put pressure on this prosecutor to release the grand jury testimony. Under normal circumstances, you would never know what's said to that grand jury. You never would. In this case, is the exception to the exception. Okay. Now, here's the thing. The prosecutor Mr. Daniel Cameron is in over his head, guys. He's in over his head. I feel sorry for him. I mean, I have a disdain for him, number one. But number two, I feel sorry for him because he is in over his head. That's just like if you're in the 9th grade, you go out for varsity. Now, this might not apply to D. D's always bigger than everybody else. But if you're in the 9th grade, you go out for varsity, you go out for football, you weigh 125 pounds, and the coach says, hey, you go and play linebacker. You're in over your head. You don't have the experience. And what I mean by that is this guy is 34 years old. Okay? He's 34 years old. He's never been a prosecutor before. Okay? He's never been a prosecutor. He has no experience as a prosecutor. He played football at Louisville. Okay, so he's kind of like a hometown hero.
Okay.
He wasn't a star. He was a reserve player. He went to law school. And then, you know what his first job was? He worked for Mitch McConnell at the Senate. So he worked for Mitch McConnell. Then he worked for a law firm for about 2 years. And then he ran for attorney general. Okay. Yeah. He is in over his head. I can tell you, man, that in practicing law, you don't really figure out what you're doing until you've been doing it at least 10 years. And you don't master it. You don't master it till you've done it about 20. Yeah. Okay. This guy's never prosecuted a case. So he's never prosecuted a case. He's probably never even defended a criminal case, okay? And on top of that, he has the pressure of the conservative right on his shoulders. Mitch McConnell went to his wedding, okay? So what I'm saying is he has no experience, but he knows he has to be loyal to the conservative right, to the Blue Lives Matter group. Yeah. Because they're the ones who made him. So he doesn't have any experience what he's doing. Typically, attorney general, they would rely on their lieutenants in the office to do the heavy lifting, but still being able to direct the policy and make the tough decisions, he doesn't have the experience to do that, okay? So that's why I think.
I mean, basically, it just seems like there's a system in place that's just hard to break, and it's a failing system for people, and also too people being loyal to.
Right.
Loyal to.
And like I said, so what happens? It has come out that he never asked the grand jury to indict anybody for killing this girl. Now, here's another twist that's come out of this case that is unprecedented. I never heard of this happening before. It may have happened somewhere in the country before. One of the grand jurors, one of the persons who indicted Brent Hankson, that's the one officer who's indicted, has filed a lawsuit against the Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, saying he misrepresented the whole process. What the grand jury is saying is that Daniel Cameron, the prosecutor, in his statements about the grand jury process, he's misrepresenting what actually happened. I've never heard of that before. A grand juror has hired a private lawyer and has sued Daniel Cameron. So,
it's happening in the background.
Right. So there's two things unprecedented that happened.
Yeah.
They released 15 hours of testimony that the grand jury heard. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Under normal circumstances, you would never know what the grand jury heard. Yep. And one of the grand jurors is not going away quietly. He's filed a lawsuit saying that's not what happened, and he made us look bad. Now, Now, um, and another thing about Daniel Cameron that you need to know about this guy, okay? He only got elected this year, okay? He's new on the job, all right? He's only been out of law school about 4 or 5 years. I mean, and most of that time he worked on Capitol Hill making coffee for Mitch McConnell, okay?
Yeah.
Now, as soon as he took over as Attorney General, he filed a lawsuit against in the state of Kentucky to stop abortions during the COVID epidemic. Now, I'm not going to get into whether abortion is right or wrong and all that. That's not the point. The point is he's pushing the far right agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, he's pushing their agenda. Okay, and not only, and he lost that lawsuit. He lost that. You know, I mean, but not only did he file that lawsuit, he filed another lawsuit against the state of Kentucky to stop their public health measures when the pandemic hit. So what he did is he filed a lawsuit saying, you can't make us wear masks. Okay? Again, that's the far right agenda. So these factors and these facts tell me that this guy is so far in the right corner, man.
Yeah.
He's never going to act on behalf of the people as he was elected. He's always going to push the far right agenda. That's just who he is. And I don't want to discredit the guy intellectually or whatever he might have accomplished in his life, but I believe that's how he got the job he got. Think about it now. Think about it.
Yeah.
How many attorney generals you know? Oh, and by the way, he's the first Republican attorney general since the 1950s in Kentucky. He defeated a Democratic incumbent. Okay, they haven't had a Republican attorney general in 50 years.
Yeah.
How did he defeat that Democrat? Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump. Okay, so I think it's safe to say the good old boys made him who he is, and
He's got to stay loyal.
If he turns on them, then he's out. You know, another point I just wanted to make. You know, the family received a $12 million settlement, but I just heard that there was a case in Milwaukee or Minnesota somewhere where a black officer killed a white female. She was a tourist from Europe. Her family got 20 million, from what I understand. You know, so, you know, there's disparity everywhere. But what the $12 million is telling, because nobody, I'm gonna tell y'all a secret. Nobody pays you $12 million unless they know they really messed up.
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
Yeah,
nobody does that.
That's a great point. Like, by doing that, that's admitting, like, you know what, we dropped the ball.
Yeah, they're not doing that because, you know, because they are nice people. Now, in any lawsuit, you know, 42 USC section 1983, that's a federal statute that was enacted to remedy and prosecute deprivation of someone's civil rights. That's the magic. We hear him talk about a 1983 lawsuit. That is the type of lawsuit you file when your civil rights have been violated. This girl had the right to be free from being shot. You see what I'm saying? And so now, if you sue the government under state law, there are limits on what you can get. Okay. But the federal law, there is not. So they got a $12 million settlement. So just going back to kind of summarize the points I wanted to make with you guys. this is a horrible case, but there's a lot of issues attached to the case that are going to be litigated, argued, debated, and legislated, and hopefully, this girl's death won't be in vain. Hopefully there'll be some clarification of the no-knock warrant. And another thing is that the plight of Black Americans and what we go through is being highlighted again, hopefully, the grand jury process might be changed. The attorney general has been exposed. Think about it. If this case hadn't happened, this guy would have continued as business as usual. Yep. He may continue that anyway, but at least we are on to him now, Yeah. So
he's definitely under the microscope now because of everything that's going on.
Yeah, and I don't think he can handle the pressure. I mean, and that's another point I wanted to make too. With criminal justice reform.
It's like you're a mind reader. I swear, every time you make your point and this commends you and the expert you are, I'm like, okay, let's see what he talks about. And they're like, oh, I want to talk about this. You're reading my mind, man. You're on point.
All right, cool. Now, the attorney general is supposed to be the top prosecutor, right? For the state, okay? He's supposed to prosecute the criminals, and he's supposed to defend the state. If somebody's polluting the rivers, he's supposed to go after them. Yeah. He's supposed to be the guy in the white hat, but he's the top prosecutor. Now, if you were looking for the top prosecutor privately or the top lawyer, wouldn't you get somebody with experience? You see, my point is, these positions have become political.
Yep, agree.
Okay, 100%. They're political.
100%.
Yeah, and so that, we need, even in some states, in South Carolina, you can be a judge even if you never actively practice law. The way we pick the judges, some states they vote on judges. I know North Carolina, the judges are are elected by the people. In South Carolina, a circuit is made up of 2 or 3 counties, okay? If the state representatives and the senators from that county, if they want a person appointed judge, they nominate him and the other lawmakers go along with it. Because, say you're a legislator from a county that's 3 hours away. You don't care anything about what's happening here. You don't know anybody here. So when your colleagues from that county nominate the guy, you go along with it, because when you come back to nominate your guy, they're gonna let him pass. And so my point is, we have judges in South Carolina, man, who have never practiced law. They have no clue what they're doing, and a lot of them get appointed as political favors. And so, the prosecutor, he was elected without experience, and it's turned out to be a bad thing for the state of Kentucky, man.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that breakdown is probably just thank you so much for it. You broke down everything. You broke everything from every step of the way, all the interest, all the questions. I don't have any questions only because you broke down everything on point. And
I didn't mean to talk too much.
No, but the only thing was you were educating, like me and both. I know Paul McAfee. We don't understand something, we ask right away, and we're just listening and we're just educating. It's crazy, like when you broke all these things down. Some things I knew, some things I didn't, but it just lets us know, like, you know what? When you said reform, we really need to reform, and we have to go from the bottom. Obviously, probably has to go from the top to the bottom would be the best way to do it, but we have to take steps from bottom to get to the top. Because all these things are just ridiculous. Like someone getting a job off of their favor, or someone this and other connections. It's always said who they know, but it's like their connections are affecting cases and affecting people's lives that, Breonna Taylor can never get her life back.
Right.
And all we wanted, and when people don't understand, we just wanted justice because we felt that things are being done wrong and there's being things that's being done under the carpet that aren't coming to fruition. So by just speaking on it, and then some people don't want to listen to me and Pablo because, like I said, we're not of the law background.
Right.
They can always
Well,
say,
I got the
you don't know
impression that
law.
Pablo knew all this already.
Man, but it's like I said, sometimes you just need the credentials because we've gotten people in corners just with facts, and they'd be like, "Oh, you don't know law, or you might have read something, but you don't have the degree, and you don't study things, so you don't understand." That was just great.
I just wanna let the viewers know that October 5th is the last day to register to vote. So
absolutely.
Election, you got till October 5th to register to vote.
Yeah. And then speaking about that, and the election last little bit, last chance to go register to vote. Make sure you do that because you have to make a change. I wanted to ask you about the first presidential debate. I know you saw it. That thing was my point of view, and I talked to DJ Paul McAbee. It was very tacky. I feel like the guy was like just watching a show and he couldn't get a word in. Like they were ignoring the rules and everything. So I just wanted your take on what you saw and what do you believe going forward? Because a lot of people are bringing up this thing called a mute button, because they believe they're not getting their, and it's more. I'm not going to say that Joe Biden didn't get his 2 cents in. Sometimes he would interrupt too, and that's fair. I'm a fair person because I just want to listen to what they got to say. But it seemed like President Trump was just talking and couldn't wouldn't respect the rules.
Mr. Trump has conveniently caught COVID-19.
This is an odd. I've said about Trump, man, everything that could go wrong with his presidency did go wrong. I mean, and this is just the final straw. But the presidential debate, I generally don't watch debates. And the reason why I don't watch them is because I don't think they add much to the equation. Because, now they may tell you about a person and how they can articulate and, how they can think on their feet and, how good they look and this and that. And that's all important. But I don't believe they tell you how a person can run the country. Now, I think debates are more appropriate for like lower level races. I think if you're running for president and you're on a national ticket, you ought to be able to articulate and talk. I mean, but anyway, having said that I did watch this one. Okay. I did watch this one. And I watched it because it's kind of like a train wreck. You don't want to see it, but you can't turn away from it. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it was a train wreck. I couldn't turn away either, so I was watching it. I wish I could. I didn't, I kept telling myself, this is garbage. I don't need to watch this, but you just couldn't turn away. Now, having said that, I think it was I think it really added nothing to the equation. I mean, it told us things we already knew. Okay, we already knew that Mr. Trump was a hothead.
Agreed.
We already knew that he was a bully. Okay, and we already knew that he was arrogant, self-centered, and anything else you want to add.
Agreed.
We also knew that Joe looks like an old man. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to vote for Joe. I'm going to say that,
Yeah.
But Joe is not the perfect picture there. Joe looks old. He's not the sharp. His wit is not the sharpest. So it told us that, but I think it just really solidified what everybody knew about Trump. I think a couple of points. First of all, Trump's ardent supporters are not going to go anywhere because nobody.
I mean, me personally, I believe way before the whole election time with Biden that Trump is definitely going to be a 2-term president. And
you think so?
I personally believe so, and his supporters are definitely going to be there to support him. That's what I personally believe.
I mean, and like I said, we don't agree on that one because I believe there's so many people that are even of the party of his Republican Party that are sick of him as well. So I just think he's got too much working against him, where it's like, I don't think he's going to repeat. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, the Electoral College kind of does what it wants when it's all said and done.
You know, me personally,
and I hope we voted the right way to get the right people in there to, you know, make a change. But it's just, like I said, you know, Chris Wallace is not on the left side of the thing. He's, you know, he's pretty straight even. He leans more to the right. And he was just trying to get him to be on point and follow the rules that they agreed on. And he got on Chris Wallace and said, I didn't know I was debating you today. I thought I was debating Joe. So I'm just like, Chris Wallace is not on Joe's side.
He's not on the left. He's not on the left.
You know, but why would you
Chris
call
has
him
had
out?
enough. He's had enough. I certainly, you know, after the, like I said, his supporters are going to support him.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
After the last election with Hillary Clinton and what the polls showed then, I don't know what to think. You know, I don't think he's going to win again, but I'm hesitant to have a lot of confidence because of what happened before. Now, I think that the swing voters, you know, those are the voters that are going to decide the election, and the Electoral College, you know, and it's so with this debate, I think it was, you know, it was debates are all about image. You know, now you guys are young, but I believe the first debate was in the 50 national televised debate was I think it was John Kennedy and Richard Nixon.
Richard Nixon, yes.
Yeah. And John Kennedy, you know, he came out, you know, they say he got the best of the guy in the debate. So from that point on, debates have been kind of like a showcase, you know, and because the presidential election, who we vote for, a lot of times is based on their image, who we like the best. We don't really know a lot about them. They never do exactly what they say they're going to do. So I think it's just an image thing. But just this final point, you know, he didn't win the popular vote. Okay, neither did George Bush. Didn't win the popular vote. He won the Electoral College. So the race is going to come down to you guys in Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Ohio. Those are the wild cards.
The usual suspects.
Right. And so I think there's a stat, and I don't know exactly, but I think Michigan and Ohio have decided the last so many elections. You know, however Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania goes, excuse me, that determines the election.
Yeah.
And I think the last election, well, if you support Donald Trump, whether you admit it or not, I believe you're racist. I mean, because you support his racist views. I think the last election, a lot of people that voted for him, they didn't say that beforehand because they knew that it would make them look racist. So what they did is they said nothing, or they said they were going to support Hillary, and then they went into the booth and they voted for him, you know? So, but I think his antics, I think have rubbed the decent people in the middle the wrong way. And I just, it's just my hope that this country isn't that bad, because if he wins again,
shows the heart of the nation. It shows
really
where
does.
Rainbow's heart really is.
It really does. It really does. And so it would be troubling.
I mean, like I already said, I feel like Trump is going to be a two-term president, and you know, there's going to be a couple riots after the election, and then you know, people are going to be like, well, we got to deal with Trump for another 4 years, and it'll be back to, you know, him being a joke like on Saturday Night Live and so forth and whatever, and then people are just going to have to deal with another 4 years, and then let's see what happens.
Well, let me just make this point. If he loses, there's going to be a lawsuit. Okay. And people say, a lawsuit, he lost the election. Well, you know, you can file a lawsuit about anything. And
Yeah.
He's sued more than anybody. He files more lawsuits than anyone.
Yeah.
And what he's going to do is file a lawsuit to try to invalidate the election. Now, whether he will be successful, probably not.
Yeah.
But he's going to try everything that he can. And, you know, I don't think it's ever been done before, but I think you can sue and say the election was a sham, and you know what he'll be asking for from a legal standpoint would be.
They say that
injunction.
in America you could sue over anything. Now, where you win is a different status.
That's
but,
right.
You know, I could trip and fall. You can be, a mile ahead of me. I can say you made me fall. I'm suing you.
Right.
They'll be like, when you get to court, absolutely not. You're not getting it. But I have the right to pursue the lawsuit.
You'll pay for my legal fees.
There you go. Well, see what
I know. DJ Pablo Maccabee wanted you to speak on one thing before we wrap up everything. And
let me just make this point. If he files If he files a lawsuit about the election, he's going to be seeking an injunction. And an injunction stops the enforcement of the election until there's a court hearing. Back to you, DJ Pablo.
No, I think we got to wrap it up. We're about an hour in.
Okay.
Great. Man, I've had fun, guys. I mean, it seems like we just started talking.
Yeah, I know. We definitely got to do this again. I just want to say thank you for sharing your expertise on everything. I appreciate you taking time out your day. I know you're a busy man. So from the bottom of me, for Big Fellas and for DJ Maccabee, for 25 the coach, we just want to say thank you so much. And love to do this again with some other topics.
Anytime, man. It was my pleasure, guys. Keep doing what you're doing.
That was
appreciate it.
Having you on the show. Yo, we signed
welcome.
DJ Pablo Maccabee, D Wise, and John Clark. I hope everybody has a good weekend, and blessings to everybody. Take it easy. Peace.
Peace out.
What?